All right, so first of all, thank you for having me on the panel. So my topic is environmental competence and more satisfying, user-friendly, and healthier environments. I'm associated with the City University of New York. I'm at LaGuardia Community College and also affiliated with the Graduate Center, where we have a program in environmental psychology. And well, this was the original title, I guess, but it can be also flipped. One of the main points that I would like to make is basically environmental psychology is all about trying to bridge the gaps between person and environment and users and planners, among the many things that environmental psychology does. So first of all, environmental competence is a concept that can be approached from different perspectives. Oftentimes it is, well, a loose definition is of course interacting effectively with one's environment. And of course here we can actually also see, okay, is it something that is more centered within the person, or is it something that is more about the environment? And it's probably something more, the best answer to that would be probably that it is something about the relationship between person and environment. And then of course, when we think about environment, we also can think about, I think a lot of people here in the room are probably approaching things from the perspective of builder and planner. And then of course, there's also the perspective of a dweller and user. And sometimes, you know, I think throughout this day today, I heard that there might be some disconnects within those two perspectives. And so one of the possible ways to get a better mutual understanding is what could be called phenomenological approaches, which is a fancy word of experiential approaches. And within that, there's something where you could have like a first-person approach, where a person actually, you know, tries to experience the environment. But then there's also sort of like a third-person approach, where you have another person sort of like report on their experiences. And what I found also quite interesting in sort of like what is considered science, right? And the question of, well, we can't just ask people, although I would argue that, well, sometimes we can ask people, although at the same time, they might not always give us, you know, the best answers. And at the same time, we can ask them sort of like maybe indirectly, or basically if they report about the experiences of the environment, we might actually possibly get to some of the answers or solutions. And then there's another methodological approach, which I think also falls somewhat within a phenomenological approach, which is what is called sort of like a walking, or I would also include like running methodologies. Perhaps you could actually also summarize it as an approach that considers like moving through the environment, which technically then could also include wheeling through the environment. And for me, it was of course, one exploration that I've done is like going through the environment with a stroller, which is in a way also a way of wheeling through the environment, which gave me new insights about what the environment is like. So what is it like to basically be on wheels, which then means that, well, I have to think about the environment very differently, because, you know, stairs that before were like a no-brainer suddenly become something that is in the way, so to speak. And then you think, well, there are oftentimes elevators, but particularly in New York City, you know, elevators do not always work. Right? And then I also did some exploration with walking with an elderly, and it was very interesting in the earlier presentation by Lindsay, right? It was about Hank, so to speak, so which in a way is also all about moving through the environment, and through that basically understanding different features of the environment, how they might be impacting one. So I know that the main theme of today's session is about the elderly, But I think it speaks to sort of like this general, larger mobility issues that pertain to all people at different times. So, for example, different modes of moving. So, even the so-called able person might find him or herself in a different situation when being on wheels with baggage, or actually moving with other people, or actually when oneself might be also temporary, maybe injured, sick or tired, so that there's some common aspect to that. And as a general conclusion, I would say that some of the salient, okay, I'm almost done, is that there are obviously physical features that are important when we talk about, of course, the built environment, but I think there are also mediators like technologies, and particularly, of course, working technologies that are very important. And my colleague, Jennifer Adler, did a whole dissertation on actually mediators and how technologies actually allow a smoother transition between person and environment. And then, of course, also social cultural characteristic, that, of course, other people are important too. And what I also heard in the earlier presentation, you know, when they talked about people helping people, some form of like culture of kindness and culture of caring, perhaps, that are also very important. So I think that would be pretty much it. Thank you.